In this video, I'm going to pick 15 players for the rugby team of the 2000s based on who had the most top quality performances between the year 2000 and 2009. For each position, I'm going to name a few players who were standouts and then pick the one that I think should be recognised as the best in their position for the decade. At the loosehead prop position, I've narrowed it down to two players to choose between, with those players being Tony Woodcock and Andrew Sheridan. And for the first position in the 2000s team, my choice goes to Tony Woodcock. Woodcock made his All Blacks debut in 2002, and by 2005 he was one of the best props in the world, starting all three tests in the series against the British and Irish Lions. By 2009 he had earned 50 caps for his country, in a career that finished with 118 caps and 10 tries. 5 of those tries came during the 2000s, with all of the 5 being scored against Australia. For the hooker position, the 3 players I've shortlisted are John Smith, Keith Wood and Kevin Mialamu, and the player I've chosen is Keith Wood. Wood made his test debut with Ireland in 1994 and retired from international rugby after the 2003 season, so you might assume he had a greater impact during the 90s, but he actually played a similar amount of games in both decades, having made 33 test appearances in the 90s and 30 test appearances in the 2000s. He won the World Rugby Player of the Year award in 2001, in a year where he started all 3 tests for the Lions in the series against Australia, and he also scored a total of 6 tries during the 2000s. Because of the range of skills he had when in possession of the ball, you can make the case that he revolutionised the position of hooker. At the tight head prop position, the talent is more loaded than at loose head, and some of the players that deserve a mention for their performances during the decade are Nicola Maas, Adam Jones, Carl Heyman, Martin Castrogiovanni and Phil Vickery. I decided to go with Phil Vickery as he was a key part of England's 2003 World Cup winning team, playing in all 7 matches throughout the tournament. He began his England career in 1998 and he played in 62 tests for England between the year 2000 and 2009 when he played his final international game. He started all 3 tests for the Lions in the 2001 tour to Australia and started in 2 tests in the 2009 tour to South Africa. He was a physically imposing player, standing at 6'3" and 125 kg, and was nicknamed the Raging Bull. For the locks position, the players I've listed are Bakkies Botha, Victor Matfield, Paul O'Connell and Ali Williams. The first lock I've selected is Victor Matfield. Matfield was nominated for the World Rugby Player of the Year award once during the decade in 2005, and he was a key member in South Africa's 2007 World Cup winning team, playing in all 7 games in the tournament in a season where he played 13 international games in total. He played in 3 tests against the Lions in the 2009 tour, a year where he also won the Tri-Nations with the Springboks. He won the Tri-Nations twice, with the first tournament win coming in 2004, and he scored a try against Australia in the final round to help South Africa clinch the title. Matfield at times showed he had the skills of a back, scoring a spectacular chip and chase try when playing with the Bulls, and also setting up a try for the Springboks with a similar play. The second lock I've selected is Ali Williams. Williams began his All Blacks career in 2002, and during the 2000s he made 61 appearances, during which he scored 7 tries. He played in 3 World Cups between 2003 and 2011, being one of the starting locks during the 2003 and 2007 World Cups, and during that time he was nearly always the first choice in the second row, as they experimented with multiple other players to pair up with him. He was an athletic second row who could make breaks into open space and bump off attempted tacklers. For the flankers, I'm going to name out the shortlist first and then choose a player at blindside and open side. The players are Richie McCaw, Jerry Collins, Richard Hill, Shaq Burger, George Smith, Thierry Dusautoir, Serge Betson and Juan Smith. This decade featured arguably the best talent ever seen at the flanker positions, and at blindside my choice goes to the Australian legend George Smith. Smith made his debut for Australia in 2000 and played the following 10 years for his country at a supremely high level, as he showed no signs of decline at any point in his Wallabies career. He made 111 appearances for the Wallabies, with all but 1 coming during the 2000s. Smith could play all throughout the back row, making appearances at blindside and open side as well as at number 8, and in my opinion he's among the top 2 back rowers of the decade. At open side, I gave serious consideration to not picking the obvious choice for this position, because I feel like many of his best performances came after 2010 when he went on to win 2 World Cups, but the 2 World Player of the Year awards that McCaw won in the 2000s can't be overlooked, so he deserves his place in this team. McCaw made his All Blacks debut in 2001, was named as full-time captain of the team in 2006 and won the Player of the Year award in 2006 and 2009. He played 80 tests and scored 16 tries for New Zealand throughout the 2000s, and he also won 6 Tri-Nations Championships during that time. For the number 8 position, I've shortlisted 3 pure number 8s with Emmanuel Harnordici, Pierre Spies and Sergio Parise, and also a couple of hybrid number 8s in Jerry Collins, who also played flanker, and Sebastian Chabal, who also played as a lock. If I had to pick based on pure peak ability, my choice would go to Pierre Spies, and if I was picking based on impact for a single game, both Collins and Chabal would be massive, but factoring in longevity narrows things down to either Harnordici or Parise, and my choice for this video goes to Harnordici. Harnordici made his debut for France in 2002 and made 57 appearances for his country before the end of the decade, in which time he scored 10 tries. He had an impressive ability of finishing tries, and he was a powerful runner with the ball in his hand with a strong fend-off. He won 4 Six Nations trophies throughout the decade, including 2 Grand Slams, as well as 1 more tournament win in 2010. At scrum half, the choice is between George Gregan and Fourie Dupree. Having played a long time with the Wallabies in both the 90s and 2000s, starting his international career in 94 and ending it in 07, I went with George Gregan, who is still Australia's most capped player with 139 appearances. He made 85 of those appearances during the 2000s and became captain in 2001 after John Eales' retirement. He played in the World Cup final in 2003, losing out to England, and he won the Tri-Nations tournament in 2000 and 2001. Gregan played with extreme competitiveness, and he was one of the best passers ever and had the speed and agility to beat defenders on his way to the try line. At fly half, the top 3 players we have for their performances in the 2000s are Dan Carter, Johnny Wilkinson and Stephen Larkham, and if you were to make a list counting the greatest fly halves ever, I think these players could arguably all make the top 3. For the fly half position, I went with Johnny Wilkinson, who was the World Rugby Player of the Year in 2003 in a season where England won both the Grand Slam and the World Cup, with Wilkinson's crucial drop goal sealing England's first World Cup trophy in a victory against Australia. Wilkinson won all 14 games he played for England that season, which was the most appearances he made for England in a single season. He toured with the British and Irish Lions twice, to Australia in 2001 and New Zealand in 2005, scoring 67 points from the 6 test starts that he made. From 2000 to 2009, Wilkinson scored a total of 954 test points, and he stands as the World Cup's highest point scorer with 277 points. Some of the players who I believe had the best performances at inside centre during the 2000s were Jan de Villiers, Yannick Josian and Matt Giteau, with all 3 of these players being versatile in their position. Since de Villiers started his career on the wing, Josian played a considerable amount of time at outside centre, and Giteau played as both a 10 and 12 in his career. There isn't much to choose between these players, but when it comes to picking a versatile back who can play the 12 position, my choice actually goes to Dan Carter. Carter began his All Blacks career playing at inside centre, and in 2003 he started 5 games for New Zealand at number 12, and in 2004 he started 6 games at number 12. This may be a small sample size of games, but I believe the brilliance that he showed during those games is just enough to place him ahead of the other players that I've mentioned. He scored 4 tries during those appearances at inside centre, often creating opportunities on his own and beating players with his massive fend-off. He played at number 12 for the Crusaders as well in his early career, scoring many more fantastic tries. At outside centre, the top players in this position for the decade is very similar to my top 10 outside centres video, where I featured Brian O'Driscoll, Tana Umaga, Conrad Smith, Jack Fourie and Sterling Mortlock. While Conrad Smith made his debut in 2005 and hadn't quite entered his peak until the 2000s, I'm going to count him out of the race and give the first place spot to O'Driscoll, since he first burst onto the scene in 2000 with his hat-trick against France and reached his absolute peak during the subsequent decade. He scored 37 tries in 89 games for Ireland during the decade, as well as 1 try for the Lions in 6 test appearances. I've went in depth on O'Driscoll's skills in previous videos, but I'll keep the analysis short for this video and just say that he had some of the best performances of any player in the world throughout the 2000s. For the winger's position, we have a substantial list of players who deserve a mention, but I'm just going to pick out 7, even though a lot more could easily be added on. We have Doug Howlett, Jonah Lomu, Shane Williams, Joe Rocketoko, Jason Robinson, Brian Habana and Vincent Clerc. Since Lomu played his final All Blacks game in 2002 and wasn't the same player afterwards due to struggling with illness, I won't be including him in this team. Jason Robinson played his full rugby union career during this decade and comes close to making the team, but with him spending time both on the wing and at fullback, he hasn't done enough at either position to make it into the team compared to the players I've chosen. The first winger I've chosen is Brian Habana, who made his Springboks debut in 2004 and scored 36 tries in 57 appearances between then and the end of the 2009 season. He was a key part of South Africa's 2007 World Cup winning squad, being the tournament's top try scorer with 8 tries, and he won the World Rugby Player of the Year award that same year. He went on to score a total of 67 tries for the Springboks before his final appearance in 2016, with most tries being scored thanks to his incredible outright pace and instinctive ability to finish off try-scoring opportunities. The second winger I've chosen is Shane Williams. Along with Habana, Williams is the one other winger to win the Player of the Year award during this decade, as he won the award in 2008. Williams had an incredible career with Wales that started in 2000, and he scored 50 test tries between then and the end of 2009, including 2 tries coming for the Lions against South Africa in the final test in 2009. I've always thought that Williams had the potential to do so much damage if he started the first 2 tests of that series, and he was possibly overlooked for selection in favour of playing a more physical game, but Williams is one of those few players whose size is irrelevant given the sheer attacking threat he poses. Even after a decade of playing at the top level, opposing defences struggled to contain him and never figured him out, which is a testament to how talented and elusive he was. At full back, our shortlist includes Percy Montgomery, Chris Latham, Christian Cullen and Mills Muliaina. I think Christian Cullen played more of his best rugby in the 90s, as he played his last game for the All Blacks in 2003, and I decided to give the full back spot in this team to Chris Latham, as his peak coincided with the majority of the decade of the 2000s. He played in the World Cup winning Australia team of 99, but went on to play in 2 more World Cups in 2003 and 2007, making it to the final in 2003, and he was also nominated for the World Rugby Player of the Year award in 2006. Latham was a good runner with the ball in hand, as he had the ability to break through tackles and also beat defenders with his step and exceptional pace. He was a good try finisher and could pop up in the attacking line to cause a mismatch with the defence, as well as scoring tries from long range runs. He scored 40 tries in 78 tests for Australia, an impressive scoring rate for a fullback of more than 0.5 tries per game, and he also broke the Australian record for most tries in a game, scoring 5 against Namibia at the 2003 World Cup. He retired from international rugby in 2007, and he spent most of the decade playing his club rugby with the Queensland Reds before departing in 2008. For my next video in this series, I'm going to pick the greatest team of the 90s. The average viewer age for this channel is quite a bit older than I am right now, so if you would like your opinions heard on who should be included in the 90s team of the decade, please be sure to leave a comment and let me know.